Good evening, everybody. What's up? All right, so today I'm going to show you the prototype from before I started. So I think it was 2008 that I started running for T.O.P, and I don't remember the name of the car that we started with, but that's what we ran at the Carpet Nats in Omaha, and I wound up blowing up a lot of rotors in modified and finished, I think, last. And the 13.5 went well, and we wound up TQing and winning that. And this car was some CAD that they had sent me after that race. I don't remember when exactly it was. I know we were at a race talking about it, and Vincent and EJ were there talking, and they sent me the CAD model to check out. So this is what, and I have to apologize, my normal Spaceball does not work with this e-drawings, but this is the only format I have this in. I don't have this in like a CAD model, so I can't upload this. And like I said, this is a prototype that was never made, but this is kind of the precursor to the Photon. So, and actually, it's kind of funny that it looks more like the cars do today. The one problem what we had with this car, though, at the time was because of the way that this whole center section was made. And now, mind you, I went through this CAD and assigned all materials and everything, so we could get a pretty solid estimate on what the weights were. And the one problem with this car was with this giant mid-motor mount type setup, it was extremely heavy. So also, the other thing we were looking at is it covered a lot of area for flex, so the car was going to be pretty stiff. But you can see a lot of common things like the style that the suspension arms were made out of, made front and rear. I tried to emulate that when we did design the Photon. They really wanted a single crank, even though I had pushed pretty hard for a dual crank system, which is kind of funny seeing that everybody's going back to it now. But again, you can tell older car style. Again, the servos were being mounted the opposite direction to today's cars. I did have the style with the shock towers on the opposite sides of the shocks compared to most of the cars, just opening up some of that area. But there was small things like, there was only front wheelbase adjustment, no wheelbase adjustment in the rear, just a bunch of little stuff. So as we discussed it, they decided to have me redesign the car, and that's kind of where everything progressed from there. Also, I want to send them a huge thanks. I know Vincent and I didn't finish on the best of terms when I was let go from T.O.P, but thanks a ton to him for letting me upload this stuff and share with everybody. Also to EJ for replying to my message so quick and pinging Vincent right away. So again, I really appreciate it, guys. Thanks for letting me share this stuff with everybody. So let's see. I'm going to switch over now to SolidWorks. All right, so this was the original Photon. I'm going to close this one too. So the deal behind this is you can see the previous car. So the main thing that I basically did was take that previous car, and at the time we were still using round cells. Lipos were just starting to come into the mix. But the big thing is that we were still split on tires. So the US was still racing under foam tires at this time, where, on asphalt we were running rubber tires, but the rest of the world was on rubber tires. So this was kind of a hybrid car, if you will, to try and give us something to race both, to where we could have success in both areas. And the first time we actually got to run production cars was at the Reedy race. I think E.J. Evans wound up winning. I think it was USGT. He sent me a note on what it was. It was 13.5, and I think whatever they were calling the USGT class. So we had a really good outing. I had some decent races. Actually, it was kind of funny because one of those popped up in my YouTube feed the other day where Lemieux crashed at the beginning and Howard and I beat on each other, and he caught up and beat us on the last lap. So pretty funny looking back on everything that long ago. But at the time, we had gone away from the other style suspension mounts and went more the X-ray direction, being that was so popular for carpet racing. We were trying to cover a lot of the chassis with bulkheads and optional pieces, to where like we had these two small separates, and then we had one that would join, and then one that would join and come out with ears to stiffen the car for foam tire racing. So we were trying to have a bunch of those options. This whole weight tray wasn't used for round cells, but we were using them for lipos to be able to drop some weight in there to balance the chassis, at the time. Of course, ball differentials with the sealed up snap-on covers. I wanted to do the rear arms and hubs a little bit different to make them stronger, because of the fact that everybody was taking this kind of back section of this arm and having to scallop this back to tuck the rear suspension arm, or tuck the shock in, so that we weren't dragging on the rear wheels. So I kind of inverted the hub and the rear suspension arm in order trying to make space, so we could still have a nice, stiff, solid suspension arm, but narrow all that up so that we had more room in this area, so that we weren't hitting on the inside of the foam tire rims, where we always were grinding grooves in the shock cups. So that was pretty much the gist of this car. This car got ran. I had a prototype, I don't remember, for maybe 8 months or so. I went over to a Hong Kong charity race where we ran over there. I think Hanulik and a bunch of the guys started running it here in the U.S., and that was my first inkling, first meeting with Hanulik and a bunch of the other guys there. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on some of the names, but I'm getting old, so it is what it is. But that was pretty much it. So this was kind of the first version of everything. Looking back on it, it's pretty funny to see how much things have changed. This at the time was, pretty standard, pretty, I think, I wouldn't say run of the mill. It had a bunch of different stuff on it, but fairly typical for a touring car. Now they've changed a ton, obviously, in the last 13 years it's been now since I drew this. So, but this car was to this point when we started production, and we had ran for a little while, and I actually have 2 other versions of it. So there was another car that I had already started working on. By the time that this got out and people were running them, I had already worked on a second version, an Evolution 2, with a bunch of tweaks and changes, trying to further improve the car without making massive changes. And that car is more a mix, I would say, of like a pretty good selection of option parts. So that was one of the things I had. If I come back into my files here, so we had a ton of different option parts with some different chassis, all the different weight plate sets, some of the lipo weights that we had made. I even drew up for one ways, and then just a bunch of different aluminum hub carriers, steering blocks, kind of the adjustable body post cap, like the one that we made for the 12 scale car, but it was made for the touring car size post and pin, so a little bit bigger. I don't think that was ever made. Some of this aluminum stuff might have been made at some point. I also drew up dog bones. I, from running nitro cars and A scale and all that, I really, really like dog bones for some reason in the rear of the cars, but no one ever runs them. So I drew them. They were never made, but you know, it's just one more thing that that I always liked and really wanted to try an electric touring car. Back in like street weapon times, I actually was a big fan of sliders, actually. To me, those always gave really good traction. You just had to clean all the carpet fuzz and junk out of them all the time. So I was always big on wanting to play with, you know, play with rear universals and dog bones and things like that, trying to get more rear traction. But everybody just kind of runs these standard style universals now. Some other interesting things. Let's see. We're going to go into this. So a long time ago, my dad and I started messing around with making different pistons. And I know you guys have seen a ton of the off-road pistons where they have, you know, 6, 8 holes, whatever. My dad had actually machined shock pistons for me that were the exact size. I shouldn't say exact, but he was actually machining them that were the standard thickness, but they were like the exact size of the body. And what we started doing then was, instead of drilling holes, we were trying to do like the old like Delta 12 scale shocks or some of those, and just seeing what would happen if we did the math on the volume and started making the pistons really small. So what we started doing was trying to get the correct amount of blow-by in the shocks to mimic having 3 hole, you know, 1.0 or 1.1 pistons. And one of the interesting things is that they were super inconsistent. They were terrible. So what we did actually was, instead of a standard piston, you can kind of see how recessed this is. This is actually much taller than a standard piston. And so what we did was put a slight taper on him, and we made this section of the piston, the center section here, is actually a lot tighter to the body than a normal piston. So like generally a 10 millimeter bore, you would have a 9.9 millimeter piston. Well, the way that these were designed was to be a 10 millimeter bore with like a 9.95, so that there was less blow by, and the shape of the piston was working to control more of the oil and force it through the holes. And he hand machined me some, and they worked really, really good. And I ran those pistons for, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years, through all my top cars and into other cars even, and also in some of my gas car stuff. So I always really liked this. They were really consistent. I've seen some companies do some things like this, some haven't, but I've always been a fan with this. I even did make some of these for my A-scale off-road car when I ran for a Gamma for a little bit and was playing around with that. It made a massive difference jumping. So for a non-road guy that was always having trouble making jumps or making some of these big triples or quads or anything, I made some pistons like this for my A-scale off-road car, and I actually ran them at a Bill Bridges benefit race. And I went from shorting this tabletop thing in front of the driver's stand to jumping about 15, 20 feet past it the next day. So they make a pretty good difference as far as making sure to force the oil through and you know, actually adding a good amount of pack if you don't actually end up like drilling a little extra volume for the piston holes. But so that was one of the unique things. Unfortunately, instead of making these a machined piston, they molded them in the kits, which meant they weren't very round, so they had to actually decrease the outer diameter because the tolerancing wasn't good for them to fit. So that was kind of a bummer in the whole deal, that they weren't actually able to work. So At the time, we weren't sure of shock spring sizes, so we had made these collars so we could run both the 13 and 14 millimeter inner diameter shock springs. I think now everybody has gone to 14s, and maybe the big bores are even bigger than that. I don't. Well, they should be the same. So, but that is pretty much it for this one, I think. So what I'm going to do is not save as. I'm going to go to the old pack and go, and I'll include the batteries and the servo in here. It's just so it's in the GrabCAD upload. Let's see. Okay. All right, so while all that's saving, I am going to jump over to back to GrabCAD here. See in the background. Yep, looks like this is done. Nope, not this one. All right, it's rolling here, so I'm going to get all these uploaded, do my usual run through on all this stuff. So if anybody wants to go and check out all the sub-assemblies, all the individual parts and whatnot are in there. And it should be good to go. Yep. So that'll all get uploaded. Hey Ryan. Yeah, is there any of the oval cars in particular you'd like to see, or just all of them, or any of them? I can upload those. I've just kind of been going through these by request. With uploading the turn car stuff the other day, I had a couple people message me asking about if it would be possible to do any of the Photon stuff so that they could play with the model as a full kit. So you can take all of this stuff and put it on that other Evo TC that I uploaded. So I did the turn car wings based on another request. So if anybody wants anything in particular, I mean, definitely message me or post on Facebook or here in chat or whatever and let me know, and I'll upload those next. So you know, obviously I have a ton of CAD in here, so I'm just kind of scratching the surface. And now with EJ and Vincent being, you know, so awesome to let me upload these as well, there's going to be a ton of stuff that I can add to it. So there'll be the Evo 2 version of this. That was a prototype that I did. Then there'll be the other version that I was prototyping at the time, that I actually won the 2010 Roar Carpet Nats with. So I'll probably finish putting that model back together, and I'll get that one uploaded. And then also I can do like the Rebel 12 scale car and some of the other stuff I was working on there. So I actually had a F1 car that we started and a couple other things. So I can do that. I can do an oval car next though. I know, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I guess I've done 2 turn cars and a 12 scale and some stuff. So I can definitely jump over and to do one of those. All right, so it looks like all this is on here. I'm going to publish. Oops. Let's throw those in there real quick. It's going to separate them all. And then I'll add the URL and some other stuff in here. So, but I'm going to go back through and fix the gallery and that stuff. So, because it's obviously going to upload all these parts into there, so I need to strip some of that out. Yeah, no problem. So I'll do that. I'll do I don't know. I'll do maybe lithium first and just go in order, or maybe the one before that. So maybe we'll just go with the C12, and then I'll just go right in order with all the oval cars. Being all these other ones, I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but maybe I'll just do the oval cars in order. So I don't know. I guess that's about it. If anybody else has any questions, you can feel free to leave it on my on the comments on the YouTube or on my Facebook page, or message me through Facebook Messenger. That works also. But if you're watching from YouTube, if you wouldn't mind doing the like and subscribe thing, that would be awesome. And I will continue to keep uploading these and get back to my VCR over here and get more of these races done. So I've been slacking on that lately with our helmet paint, which, matter of fact, it's a shame it doesn't like show up better on camera, but it's pretty ridiculous. So the hockey goalie mask for my kids coming out pretty good, so I got to finish wet sanding it and getting everything cleaned up. Hey, EJ. So I got to finish getting that cleaned up, and we can start all the candy colors and all that stuff next. So I don't know if I'll post the videos on that, because honestly, it looked like I massacred a unicorn down here. There's glitter everywhere, and I tried taking a GoPro video, like a time lapse of it, and when I stopped the GoPro and looked at the screen, like the whole front of my GoPro screen over here, like this whole thing was like covered in glitter that apparently I didn't like de-static this thing, so it, from cleaning it beforehand, it was just all covered. It was terrible. So hey, Drew, thank you. I'm gonna keep uploading stuff, and like I said, hopefully some of you guys that are playing in CAD or have 3D printers can use any of this stuff. If there's any file formats or any of that stuff that you want me to add, feel free to ask, and I'll make sure to do it. So I gotta upload both a Parasolid and a step file of all this too. So I'll get that added and update some stuff in GrabCAD now. So other than that, have a good evening. Thanks, Ismail. Any other questions for you guys that are on? Are we good? I think we're good. All right, guys, have a good one, and catch you in the next one.